my name is James. I'm recording a podcast on a rock, and I'm joined by...
Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Who is also on the rock.
Where are we, Kate?
We are just north of the Gracetown North Car Park. That's the best way I can describe it. I don't know how long we walked. Was that a kilometer, maybe? We are on the coast. We're sitting on a beautiful piece of granite outcrop of granite orthonese, and we're looking out on the Indian Ocean. It looks like the sun is going to set in about an hour and a half.
It's quite cinematic, really.
It is. There's quite a bit of cloud cover just on the horizon, but not overhead, which makes me wonder if potentially there might be a nice sunset tonight. I can see 2 crepuscular rays on the horizon, which are always a delight.
Kate reads a lot of books, so she knows lots of good words.
Do you know what a crepuscular ray is?
No, I was hoping you would tell me.
You might have heard them as like the fingertips of God, but it's that like sunbeam, like it looks like a UFO is shining light in that corner, you know, when there's a spotlight of sunlight coming down.
I never knew there would be a name for it. I'll just be like, oh, that's a ray of sunshine.
Right?
Yeah.
They're quite cinematic. But yes, crepuscular. It's a good word. Plus, it's fun to say. I'm a sucker for anything with a C and an R.
Just for context, we're recording this at the end of August. Where I live in the southwest of WA, it's just been raining basically non-stop for the last month. It's been a very dry year, but they just decided to drop all its rain in 1 month.
I have heard that it was the rainiest August in 10 years.
Wow.
I think I heard that the other day.
It certainly hasn't been the wettest winter, because I was trying to build a house 3 years ago, and I can actually see they actually marked the flood line on the river near me, and the house got delayed a year because it was so wet, and the flood line this year didn't get anywhere near. It's about a lot lower. Whatever that year was. That was 2021. But yeah, so it's a bit of a wintry vibe, a bit of a breeze going on. And yeah, I haven't podcasted in a long, long time. And Kate inspired me to get back into it.
I
Kate,
feel super honored that you wanted to have a chat with me on the record.
Oh, yeah. Well, I met Kate in real life in a book club, and she was very good at... I could just listen to her talk about books all day. And anyway, I was just going to interview you, Kate. Hey, who are you, Kate? Where are you from? There's a bit of an accent difference between us.
Yes, when I'm not vocally stimming and using an accent that isn't mine. I do have a Canadian accent. I'm from...
What's vocally stimming? I'm already going off tangent.
When I do little voices like this.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you have a part of your job as being a tour guide. Do you have a special tour guide voice that's more neutrally accented?
No.
Like a radio voice?
No, I wish. I do try to speak clearly and loudly when I'm working on the track, talking to people, but it's just how I hide any kind of anxiety I have. I do so by joking and by putting on voices and accents, and then it just kind of has become a part of my personality that's kind of theatrical, to kind of say things in a funny way. I'm never imitating the accents of people around me, although sometimes it looks like I am. But yeah, so that's a vote. That's a little thing I do. But yeah, typically this is my accent, and it's from the east coast of Canada. I'm from New Brunswick, which is a province that is part of the Maritimes on the far east, next to Quebec.
Okay. Is there any French influence?
Yes, there is.
Do you speak French?
Yes. I grew up speaking both. I have what I would call a bogan French. My partner's from France, and we sound quite different when we speak our mother tongues.
So French is your mother tongue?
I like to say French is my mother tongue and English is my father tongue.
Okay.
Because my mom was raised French.
Oh, right.
And she's fully bilingual. Mm-hmm. And my father was raised English, and he was unilingual. He never learned how to speak French. Mm. But we spoke English at home as a family, but I spoke French with my mother sometimes. But me and my two older siblings, we all went to a French school, not like an immersion school, but truly a French school where you would get in trouble if you spoke English.
Yeah.
And so school would be in French and then English would be at home. And so I very much had this bilingual upbringing. So that's why I like to say that one is my mother tongue and one is my father tongue, because I did learn them both at the same time. But I will say that I am much better in English than I am in French. I've always read more in English, and English has always just made more sense to me. Like I'd never really had to learn English grammar. I just kind of understand it, but French grammar, I'm awful.
Because you're a bogan in French.
Yes. Yeah. It's like I've been told it sounds like the Texan equivalent of French, because there's this kind of sing-songy twang to it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's one of the things it's hard to appreciate if you are unilingual. And I wonder if even if you know a little bit of French, whether you would even pick it up. I would just go, I don't know enough French people to go, oh, that's a group of people, that's not just your way of saying things, you know?
Yeah, true. Like, I would never be able to tell if someone is speaking Swiss German or German.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that when I speak in French, I don't think anyone ever thinks I'm from France.
Yeah, okay.
It sounds so different.
So what do you speak at home with your partner?
We speak English.
Okay.
Yeah. We speak French once in a blue
Because you're too
moon.
bogan for him, like, he can't even understand.
It makes his ears bleed. No, it's because he's been in Australia for 10 plus years, and he really only started learning English when he moved here as a backpacker. And to him, he is constantly trying to improve his English, so he doesn't want to speak French here. He is still immersing himself in this place, and a really big part of that is perfecting his English. And to be fair, his English is impeccable. He's completely bilingual,
okay.
like 100%. Like, he makes puns, he like has wordplay, he has a very deep understanding of the English language, and it's very much a testament to the like time and effort that he's put into it. But sometimes I can convince him to speak in French with me because I really miss it.
Yeah, I would say so. I hear that from a lot of people, like especially down here near near Margaret River. I know there's a big Italian community, and they like hanging out together so they can speak Italian and not lose that edge. Because I know some people who are some of my friends who are backpackers over here, they really go, oh crap, I've been speaking only English for 6 months continuously, and I'm already losing my edge as in my mother language.
Absolutely. We went to France last year to visit his family, and oh my gosh, at first, and it was kind of mind-blowing for me because I grew up with a bunch of bilingual people, and so you could be speaking French, and any time that you couldn't find a word, you could just switch to English. Or if you ever there are so many topics that I have never discussed in French. And so there's a lot of jargon and a lot of words that I don't know because I've never talked about that in French. And so it made me realize how lazy I am.
Well, not your laziness, but how disconnected.
Yeah, and but then I went to France where 2 members of his family can understand or speak English and the rest of them can't, and so I couldn't fall back on that. Yeah. And I had to only speak French, and so that not being able to fall back on the old faithful, but then also how long it had been since I had a genuine long conversation solely in French, again without switching. At first, my words felt like molasses, like my mouth, it felt like marbles, and I was speaking so slowly and the words weren't coming to me, and then within a week I was the training wheels were back off, and I was feeling more confident. And once I got there, I stopped reading in English and I switched to only reading in French, and that helped as well. And even his family were like, it's been really cool to watch you kind of get your sea legs back.
Yeah. What language is the default language of your phone?
My phone?
Yeah, like
English.
You set the language. Yeah,
English.
Okay. Yeah.
But my partner's is French,
Okay.
and sometimes I have to, or maybe no, his phone's in English, but his computer's in French, and sometimes I have to do things if I'm helping him on the computer, and I'm like, I can't look at this, like I don't know what this means,
Okay.
because again, those words.
Did you learn to touch type with a French keyboard? Is that something you have to think about?
I can change my keyboard to French, which I do sometimes if I'm ever texting in French.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little. You can add multiple languages, and so there's a little button. I think it looks like a.
Yeah, I was
looks
just wondering
like a world.
if you grew up learning the French keyboard, do you prefer typing English with the French keyboard, or the same for him?
In terms of where the keys are.
Yeah, like is it better
Yeah.
to switch to QWERTY when you want to type in English? For him, do you think? Or, I don't know, because you spoke English at home, so you probably learnt on an English keyboard to type?
No, because I learned typing at school.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But where you really learn to type is when you're chatting to your friends on MSN.
Aren't they the same keyboard?
I don't know.
I
think they are different. I know even the UK has a different keyboard to Australia, I think. Yeah.
The UK doesn't use QWERTY?
UK and US have a different keyboard. I don't know what's different about them, but
I'm going to have to look into this. And it's going to be embarrassing if I've never noticed.
yeah. Or maybe the Frenchies have just adopted, maybe because it's Canada, right? They want to just have one standard keyboard, so you just have to type whatever language on that one keyboard.
Because all the letters are the same. It's just the shortcuts for having the accents. And I get annoyed that I can't
do that on the English keyboard.
Well, I know the shortcuts of how to do it on my keyboard, which is a normal QWERTY keyboard,
Okay.
but then I can't do it on my work one. I've never thought about this. I'm gonna go to work tomorrow and just spend half an hour looking at the keyboard.
I don't know. I can't remember. I feel like, because my auntie's French, I feel like whenever she was asking me to fix something, there was always something different like that. Even if I switched the language to English, it was something like, oh crap, I'm doing something wrong.
This is ringing a bell,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to any kind of like shift. Like if you want to get parentheses, yes, and yes. This is ringing a bell. I haven't thought of it in like 15 years.
All right, sorry. I'm going off a massive tangent. So you grew up in New Brunswick, is that right? Which is on the east coast of Canada.
Yes.
And you went to a French school, like a public school?
Yeah. Where I came from, there was only one private school, and it was this like weird Christian one.
Okay.
In Canada, or at least in Provo, Canada, because I'm not from the fancy part. Where I come from, it's quite rare for someone to go to a private school.
Okay.
But then in like bigger cities, there would be private schools.
How big is your city?
It's a good question.
Is it New Brunswick you call your city, or you live in a town?
New Brunswick is my province, so it's like my state.
Yeah, okay.
And then I grew up outside of the capital, which would kind of be like the equivalent of living in Williabrup but going to school in Bustleton.
Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure when I lived there, Fredericton, which is the capital, had a population of 90,000. But I am so bad at knowing populations.
But like compared to Perth?
Well, Perth is like a couple million, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think...
So it's like a town, sort of.
I think Fredericton would be similar to Bunbury.
Okay. Were you
With
in a
less-
semi-rural then? If you're saying you're like in Williabrup,
Yeah,
which is a semi-rural,
Yeah.
were you on farmland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
kind of farmland?
My grandfather on my dad's side moved from the UK when he was 10, and his parents were given land in like a group settlement style type Canadian thing where they were just giving out land for fun.
Like soldiers, returned soldiers kind of thing?
I should know. I know more about our group settlement scheme here than I do,
okay.
but I know that his family emigrated from England and that they were given a ton of farmland and it was for logging. And then so I grew up on that land.
So you're like a lumberjack.
I should be better at chopping wood than I am. I'm really good at wearing flannel.
Yeah.
But old logging land, which members of my family still did for a long time. But then, we just lived on the land.
Yeah.
Beautiful forest. We lived on 365 acres.
Okay.
Which is about 114 hectares, I believe. It was beautiful. And then so it was about a 22-minute drive into town.
Is that how you got to school? Or you take a bus or something?
My mum drove us because she used to be a physio, and then the hospital was conveniently across the road from our school. And so she would drop us off in the morning and then go to work. And then we would take the bus home. And then eventually she retired from physio to work with my dad and his company and do the books. And then so after that we took the bus to school.
Okay.
Which is where I learned all of my swear words.
On the bus?
Yeah.
Were you an outsider because you only took the bus in the afternoons at first, and like the morning kids had their little posse and...
No, we got lucky because we lived so far out in the sticks that there was only, after a certain point, there was only 5 of us left on the bus. Okay. And so we were a little posse, and there was my sister had her bestie who lived down the road, and I had my bestie Julien, who lived down the road from me, so we were always bus buddies.
Are you still in touch?
No. Once in a blue moon, we'll have a little bus buddy, what's up, bus 31 for life.
Yeah, okay.
Or talk about how crazy our old bus driver Camilla used to be.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, not really. But I'm really bad at keeping in touch with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like a once in a blue moon. The love never fades, but if you're not in front of me...
I feel this very well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I didn't see you for a long time. I mean, that's probably also my fault because I'm a bit the same as you. And then you came to my birthday, and I was like, we got to do this podcast.
Yes.
Finally. So, what was school like? Well, I guess that you don't
do it again.
You're not a school fan.
I love learning.
Yeah.
I loved uni. School was rough for me. I did my K to 12 was all at the same school, and I eventually ended up having a really good group of friends. But it was a long road to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am really lucky that there's quite a few people in my graduating class that were still not good friends to the point that we obviously we're all off living our own lives. But whenever I go back to Fredericton, we catch up and we stay in touch.
Okay.
But yeah, school itself, I was not necessarily... I was kind of an outsider at school for the fact that I didn't live in a subdivision and I didn't get to just go to friends' houses after school. It was nothing.
Yeah.
It all was... Being able to have a play date was more of an elaborate effort. But then also the fact that most of the kids at my school were more French than me, and I was kind of more English, which kind of put me kind of out with the teachers as well.
Yeah.
Which is why I have a lot of... my French is kind of I'm learning how to joke about it and joke about my broken French, but it is kind of a sore spot.
Oh, okay.
If French people ever correct my French, I'm like... Because there's a lot of pain there from being a little girl and being told that she sucked.
Yeah.
But we're healing.
So you get to the end of high school, And then, like, is it this mad dash to, like, move to a big city?
Yes. It was a mad dash to get out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to uni purely because I just needed to get out, and I knew that I would never be able to afford to move out and not go. Like, I need to have a reason to move out, and so I went to uni, and that was my get out of jail card.
And so you went to, like, to a dorm or something?
Yeah, so I moved to Halifax, which is maybe the size of, I don't know, Mandra.
Okay. The big smoke.
The medium smoke. But like if Mandra was alone, not next to Perth.
Yeah.
And I went to uni there, and I did a journalism program, and but the first year was this introduction to philosophy program that they call the foundation year program that the uni was known for. But yeah, I went to this liberal arts hippie school. It was incredible. And I went there purely because I wanted to read and write, because those were the two only things that I really felt like I was good at. English was kind of the only subject that I really felt good at, and so I decided to pursue that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and uni was incredible. I kind of, like a lot of people, just kind of came out of my shell and got to, and away from my family and away from the friends who had known me my entire life, because I went to the same school my whole life. That anonymity kind of gave me the freedom to figure myself out.
Oh yeah, bit of a reboot.
Yeah.
Fresh install.
Yeah.
It's funny, like a lot of my friends who I grew up with in Perth talk about Perth being a small town, but they've grown up in Perth their whole lives, rather than half of my family are from the country, so they come from much smaller towns, and they come to Perth, and this is a big new world. It's very different for them, and it's almost insulting to call Perth a small town, because it's, when you see like how much different it is from people from real small towns to come to Perth, it's a real change. But it was that like Halifax was like, oh my god, was there like a big pool? Was it like the only uni in Halifax?
No, there were quite a few unis there, and King's College, where I went, was next door to Dalhousie and also affiliated with it, which was this huge university. And so King's was so small that there were only like 4 degrees that you could do there, but you could go to King's, but all of your classes were at Dal if you wanted. Yeah. They were affiliated because at the time, Columbia University, if you go to Columbia, apparently, I've never been there myself to fact find this, but apparently some of the oldest buildings at the Columbia University say the University of King's College on them, because it used to be there, and then during a war, when the Loyalists went north, the university went with it, and they went to Halifax, and at the time they thought that they would make this big like mega university town where all of the universities would be affiliated. And so King's joined Dal, and also it needed coin, or maybe that came after, because King's had maybe they settled in Halifax, and then years later they had a fire, they didn't have enough coin, and then they ended up getting affiliated. It's one of those two. I haven't thought about this in 10 years, but any hoodle, they were affiliated, and the other ones were supposed to be as well, but they never ended up doing it. But there's Dalhousie University, there was St. Vincent, St. Mary's, there was NSCAD, which is a Nova Scotia School of Art and Design. There were quite a few schools. And so, it was huge. But then, because I went to a small school in a bigger city, it definitely it never felt overwhelming. Like, I can't imagine coming from like bumfuck nowhere and moving to New York and being like, oh my God, like that would be crazy. It never felt like this metropolis. It just felt like a bigger pool, like I had just changed aquarium sizes, but it didn't feel like the ocean. And then even then, by the end of my 4 years, it definitely felt a lot of that anonymity had kind of gone away. But in a good way. Like it really, it was, there was such a strong community there.
Did you mingle with the other schools or unis?
Yeah, a little bit. Not much. St. Vincent was kind of a little further away. St. Mary's a little bit, but they were known for being the party school.
Oh, okay.
I think they didn't have class on Mondays or something.
Oh, no.
Because they
So everyone's
partied, or maybe that was just
hungover.
in first year. But because I ended up doing a combined honors, and so all of my journalism classes were at King's, but all of my French courses were at Dalhousie, and so I did make a few friends at Dal. And then when you were out at the bars and stuff, you'd meet people from other unis, but for the most part, my closest friends were all at King's because we were so insular, but also it's like part of King's that in your first year you do this foundation year program, and that's 4 out of your 5 classes, and
Yeah.
so I think you're 500 students or less, or fewer, I should say, and you're all doing this really intense program together, and that really bonds you. And to answer your question ages ago, as I went on my own tangent, yes, I did live in a dorm in my first
Did you
year.
have a dorm mate?
Yeah, her name was Paula Sanderson, and Paula
Oh, S.
Sanderson.
Sanderson. Okay. That's a funny name, Policy.
Policy.
Yeah.
Her parents were lawyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were so different, and then it was one of those. Eventually, we found out we were more alike than we thought. But she didn't like me much at first.
Yeah. Are you still friends now?
Again, casually.
Some of the people that I've most fallen in love with are people that I just did not get along with. I don't know what it is about that at the is that my kink? Like, you don't like them and then you start to like them, and it's like, oh, I'm suddenly really into them. I don't know.
Well, they say a lot of times that the things you don't like in other people are the things you don't like in yourself.
Maybe.
And so maybe they help you love yourself more.
Wow. Okay. Jeez. It's a good day to have a psych lesson. I had a panic attack just before Kate arrived.
No.
What was the kind of it was like you're doing an English major?
Journalism.
Oh, okay.
Journalism with combined honors in French.
Oh, right. So you're like all getting together, we're going to change the world, kind of.
No.
If
anything, I knew very early on that I did not want to be a journalist.
Yeah.
I just really liked going to school there, and I didn't know what else I would do. But then there were a lot of people doing journalism kind of to have as a base degree for something else.
Yeah.
Like a base degree for law or for PR or for writing or shit. And so I knew that's kind of become the line that I say. I think at the end of the day, I just didn't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
To be fair. And French, it was because I got there and all of a sudden I was in a place where no one spoke French.
So
And-
Halifax is not a French?
No.
No, wow.
No.
Okay.
No, so Halifax is in Nova Scotia, the next province over. And I mean, certainly there are French people there, but it's
Is
not.
Nova Scotia an island?
Yes.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still French there, but it's not as prevalent as it is in New Brunswick. It's all the language stuff across Canada is actually way more complicated than people make it out to be. It is like so much more than just the French people being in Quebec. It's a lot more than that. But predominantly in Halifax, French isn't as widely spoken. Not that it's widely spoken in Fredericton either, because again, I just kind of went from one insular bubble to the next. The insular bubble of my super French school.
Yeah.
And then an insular bubble of this small liberal arts school. But what's the question?
Well, I was just wondering what I don't know, can't remember what the question is, but what I was trying to get to is like, what was sort of the subculture amongst you? Like, were you writing poems and having slam poetry nights, or writing essays or short novels and handing it to short stories and handing it around? And what was or was it just school and you just did the work and then you talked about movies outside of whatever the pop culture?
More the go to school and then like talk about movies and philosophy after.
Yeah, okay.
Because that first year foundation year philosophy program just made us all into big philosophy nerds.
Yeah, okay.
I was explaining why I did French. I moved to this place,
That's right.
and then all of a sudden, most of the people I met didn't speak French. And I realized how I had just kind of not taken French seriously. And even though I had spoken French my whole life, my French was awful. So I decided to take it more seriously. And then did a degree in it. It was maybe a bit of a cop-out, but it made sense at the time. And then years down the line, I ended up working as a translator for a while, so I regret nothing.
You enjoy being a translator?
Oh my gosh, I loved it. It was like a puzzle every time. I specifically translated French to English because, again, I'm just like...
That's how your brain works.
English is just a massive passion of mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved translating. Loved it. And I think it's something that I might go back to one day because I just love it. And I think I'm good at it.
Do you get to do a bit of it with your hospitality job right now or your tourism job?
No.
No, you don't get any Frenchies?
Never. I had some Germans yesterday. They were lovely. No, we never get French people, oddly. But then again, any translating work that would be available here would be translating from English to French, which is just something that I will never market myself to do because that is just not my wheelhouse.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you've finished school, uni. Then what? You went straight into translation?
No, I was dating this guy at the time called Jape.
That you met in school or uni?
Well, we met on the dance floor.
Oh.
At an Irish pub.
And he went to your uni?
No, he didn't. He actually we met in the summer before our 4th years of university, and he was originally from Halifax, but he went to Queen's in Ontario. And we met, and we just fell madly in love. And then we weren't going to do long distance. And then I went to visit him, I think over Thanksgiving. And then we were like...
In Ireland?
In Ontario.
Sorry, I thought you said he was Irish.
No, we met at an Irish pub.
Okay.
On the dance floor.
He's from Ontario.
No, he went to school in Ontario. Okay. He's from Halifax. So I was except for the summer in between my first and second year, after that I always stayed in Halifax.
And he was coming home.
And he was home for the summer.
Okay. And that's when you met. Okay.
And we met. And then, so we both finished our last years of uni. He came back to Halifax. And then we both graduated, worked for the summer. And then in August, we went on a 4-month-long camping trip across Canada and the west coast of the States.
Okay.
And my plan was to move to Costa Rica and teach English. I even did my teaching English as a second language course. That was my plan. And he was going to go to grad school. And then, so we did 3 months of tenting, of like driving and tenting across Canada. And then
in the summer holidays or just took time off?
We just took time off.
Yeah.
Well, because we graduated.
Oh, sorry.
We graduated in May, worked in the summer, and then and then in August we did this. And I mean, we did it super cheaply. We didn't pay for, the only time we paid for accommodation was we got like a super cheap motel for Christmas in California. But other than that, we camped illegally the whole time.
Yeah.
Which in Canada isn't really illegal because you can camp on crowned land. It's fully allowed. But then in the States, we had to hide.
Okay.
Which got a little sketchy at times, but was ultimately entertaining. And
had you been to America much before this?
Yeah, I had been growing up, we always did all of our family trips were with our like camper van.
Yep.
And we drove around everywhere, and we spent a lot of time in the States because my dad had a company and he would go for conferences and we would join him and like make a holiday out of it. So I had been to quite a few states before, and then in 1999 as a family we did a cross Canada and cross US trip. So I had been there before, but not since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And then by the time that we finished, I was like, I'm not going to Costa Rica. That's crazy. Or I just didn't feel ready. But I didn't feel ready to go back because he was going back to start school and I didn't really know what I was doing yet.
So if you went to Costa Rica, you would have left him behind?
Yeah.
Okay.
So instead, I just stayed in California for another 2 months. And that kind of changed my life.
What happened?
I had been a person who didn't know how to be alone. And I just busied myself into happiness. But I was so I was so sad.
You were alone in California.
When, like, after he left, but
Okay.
this is the like preamble.
Yeah.
This is like what led. This is
Okay.
like what led to the transformation.
Yeah. Okay.
The life-changing moment was like my whole life I was obsessed with being loved and having friends and being accepted.
Mhm.
All very normal desires for a
Yes.
human being. We desire community. That's normal.
Mhm.
But I really didn't have a relationship with myself. Like I was just go, 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 go all the time. And I thought I was this super extroverted person. And then Jape was very introverted, and he kind of started to teach me the beauty of silence and the beauty of solitary activities. And I started hiking, and I fell in love with it, and just, spending more time alone. And then I decided to stay behind in California by myself. And I couch surfed around and had an amazing time, but ultimately, really for the first time in my life, spent time alone. And it changed me. And I think that created the trajectory for the next 10 years, because all of a sudden I had did this thing that I never thought that I could do. So it really just made me, that was kind of the beginning of the journey of falling in love with my own company and the freedom that would allow me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it scary? Or was it just a natural realization?
The first day, I remember going to sleep that night, and I had, like, my pack was huge, and I was walking like 2 hours, and he left me in San Jose. Don't ever go there. It's such a weird place.
Oh, right.
And
Silicon Valley, right? Is that?
The first day was terrifying. Also, it's very hard to tell this story without talking about the fact that I was still super religious at this time. I was a massive Christian.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. So I grew up very, very, very Christian. And so at this point in my life, I am like super Christian. And even up until the morning, like the night before Jape left, he knew he was going back. I was still undecided. Like, hadn't just didn't know if I should stay or if I should go. And I went to bed that night, and I just prayed, in the morning, I will know, and I will have no doubts.
Yeah.
Because up until the moment I fell asleep, I had absolutely no idea if I should stay or go. And I woke up the next morning, and I was like, I'm staying.
Yeah.
And then I would, like, hike with my super ridiculous heavy pack into the Starbucks to get Wi-Fi to kind of, like, figure out what my next moves were. Bawled my eyes out, and the Starbucks employees are like, what is this woman doing? Just being like, what have I done? What have I done? What am I doing? So the first couple days, it was scary, and there was very much that, like, what was I thinking? But then I was like, all right, I have to get out. Like, clearly I have to get out of San Jose. This place is not working. I was there for like 2 days, maybe 3. And when we had kind of done the perimeter of California together, I was like, I loved San Diego. I'm going to go to San Diego. So I find bus tickets, and I buy a bus ticket, and I'm like, all right, well, I need a place to pitch my tent before I go. And so we had like I had said, we had a month of camping illegally in the States, and had kind of learned to camp under overpasses and, like, in heavily shrubbed areas and parks to kind of hide. Yeah, because you really did have to hide. And so I was looking on Google Maps at where the bus was going to be launching from, and I found a park that was near-ish enough by that I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to go there. But you also could only ever set up when it was night. So kind of always planned it strategically to arrive kind of at sundown.
Are you on foot or in a car?
On foot at this point, because I'm alone.
Yeah.
So I start going, and I go to the park that I have selected, and it's basically just a soccer field with, like, a tree.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, not much here.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of suburbia, just residential area, until there's a hill or a mountain that just goes straight up. And I'm like, well, even if I go in there's not going to be any flat ground. It's just like, whoop. So I start freaking out, and I just start praying, And I'm like, God, show me a house. Which, it makes me... It's always hard talking about these specific experiences, like God moments, and talking about them now when that is like no longer something that I believe in.
Oh, yeah.
It's always funny because I'm like, what was happening? And that's totally. That's like a whole other conversation. I was guided, but I just prayed and said, show me a house.
Yeah.
Show me where to go. So I start walking up this street and I picked a house. And this couple answered, and they very quickly invited me in. And they were this little Filipino couple who had a son at home, and their other son was about to come home from uni for the holidays, but he wasn't home yet. Oh no, he had just come home. That was their one son. Maybe there were two. I can't remember. So they were like, we don't have any room for you, but you're welcome to like pitch your tent in our backyard. And I had said, like, I thought that I could camp at this park. And they were like, oh my God, don't camp there. Like, that's where the neighborhood kids go to drink at night. That would have been a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Like, all right, good. They were like, just camp in our backyard. And they let me shower and they let me wash my clothes, and like she gave me a toothbrush and they cooked me dinner. They like cooked me this.
Were they religious as well?
Yes.
Did they realize?
Yeah, at some point the son spoke a little more English, but they didn't speak too much English. But I remember having conversations about God, kind of just like in general. And yeah, they fed me and they gave me this little space heater to put in the tent to keep me warm at night. And like, they were just the sweetest. And in the morning they fed me breakfast and I had my first kumquat.
Oh, wow.
And they dropped me off at the bus and she gave me $40 and a little Christmas card. And she was just so sweet.
Yeah.
And I got on the bus and I had sent out a bunch of couch surfing requests beforehand. And luckily the bus had Wi-Fi, and I had already kind of looked at if no one replied to me.
You're still in San Jose?
This was, but going to San Diego. Okay. And I had already looked at where the bus was dropping me off, and I was like, okay, there's an overpass. Like, if I don't find a place to stay, I think I can camp in this kind of wooded area. But on the way there, one of the girls got back to me. Her name was Vicky. And she was like, it's your first time couch surfing. It's my first time hosting. What a perfect way for us to like do this together. And so I stayed with her, and she was like, oh, do you want to like chill out, or do you want to go out and have some dinner with some of my friends? I was like, oh my gosh, let's go out for dinner. That sounds great. Met a few of her friends. We had this like big fat night out. And then I ended up spending New Year's with her and her friends. And one of the guys that I had met, he let me stay in his backyard for a couple days after I left Vicky, and then I just kept couch surfing, and her and I met up a few more times while I was still in town, and I ended up staying in San Diego for 6 or 7 weeks or 6 weeks. I think I stayed in San Diego, and then I ended up going to stay with a friend in LA for the last 2 weeks before going back to Canada. But the most amazing thing was I was kind of couch surfing, hopping from place to place, stayed with this really weird guy who was in the Navy, and he was I slept with I had a knife, and I slept with it under my pillow that night because he was super creepy. And then the next night I ended up at this guy's place called Rob, and he was maybe 10 years older, maybe 15 years older than me. And he had started couch surfing as a host a few years before, and he just totally fell in love with it. And he had gotten rid of his roommate and then put 2 double bunk beds in the room plus a cot. And then he had a couch and a futon and then some extra mattresses. And he basically ran a free hostel. And everyone else, when I arrived there, I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of staying here indefinitely. So how long would you like me to stay? When would you like me to get out of your hair? Kind of put it in their court. And so I asked him that when I got there, and he was like, Just stay as long as you like. Just maybe cook a meal for everyone once a week, and that was kind of just the deal. And quite a few other people came through and stayed, and I definitely stayed maybe the second longest. But got to meet a lot of people through there as well. And he was right in Mission Beach, which is this really great area. And I just went to the beach every day and read a ton and wrote bad poetry and sang Alt J while walking down the boardwalk and bought $3 red wine from Trader Joe's. And yeah, it was great. Swam in the ocean at sunset, and everyone thought I was crazy because it was winter in California and it was not warm at all.
Yeah.
It was magical.
Sometimes wish I could be like that guy who's just like puts his spare room on.
Cool guy.
Yeah.
He had so much anxiety about traveling, and then he found couch surfing, and he was like, wow, instead of me going to the world can come to me.
Yeah.
But then eventually he fell in love with one of the women who stayed with him, and she was from Sweden, and then he like moved to Sweden eventually.
Yeah.
Like it gave him the wind beneath his wings to finally like spread him out and fly. But yeah, really cool guy, really generous. He had a motorcycle. I think he was a coder, like early days coding.
Early days coding?
Yeah, I remember
When was this?
It was
In the 2000s?
It was 2013, 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, as in he was an older guy and he was an early days coder.
I don't know, when did coding start?
Probably back in World War II or something. I don't know.
I'm not talking about Enigma.
You're talking about like early Silicon Valley when Apple computer and stuff
probably
started
wasn't
in the 1970s.
Probably not early at all, but nowadays,
For us, yes.
like nowadays,
Before apps on phones.
coding is like like you meet
Yeah.
coders all the time, and it's like much more common. And I guess I'm so glad you pointed that out, because I think
sorry, I wasn't appreciating when you said that. I was like, he must be way older than I thought in my mind. Yeah.
This is clearly my like rose view of the past of like it was.
Okay.
He was a cowboy.
But he was retired from coding, or is he still coding?
No, he was like, I don't know, maybe late 30s.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I
So
think
he came up in the .com boom, probably.
Yeah.
He got his. Yeah.
I think
He's about that age.
yeah, he was probably just the first coder I had met.
Yeah. Okay. So this now, is this on your journey to the revelation, or is this the revelation that I can live like this?
I'm like, the revelation was like, holy shit, I like my company. I don't need people around me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was the journey of figuring out like who I am without anybody else. And knowing that I can travel alone, and that I like it.
Yeah.
And then came back to Canada, went back to Halifax to work another season of a TV show that I had worked on the year before. And then when that finished up, I moved to Montreal, and I was still with Jape at this point, and the plan was for me to move to Montreal for a year, and then he was going to be finishing up grad school or something. And then, so in my mind, I was only going to live in Montreal for a year. And when I graduated, I had made this weird promise to myself that until I turned 30, I didn't want to live in the same place and or work the same job for more than a year. That was like my challenge to myself, because I just wanted to like explore and see and work different jobs and try different things and see what I like and see what I'm good at. And it was my biggest fear to kind of wake up one day and my life had passed me by. I just wanted to kind of try a bunch of stuff.
I've only known you like a year, and you've already had a career change.
I know.
Which we'll probably get to. But, yeah.
So I had it in my head that I was only going to be there for a year. And then him and I broke up. I moved there in May, and him and I broke up in October. But then I still was like, well, I'm still only going to live here for a year, and then I had 4 jobs when I moved. When I had 4 jobs in Montreal, I kind of made a full-time job out of 4 little jobs. And one of those jobs was nannying for a family a couple times a week. And I got really close with them. And they were going to Barcelona. And they were like, we're going to Barcelona in July. We want to bring our nanny. Would you be down for that? And then I had to confess to them that I was going to probably be leaving shortly after. And I was like, well, I feel like I'd be kind of taking the piss if I went to Barcelona with you and then I never came back, and then I quit. So if you want, I can stop working for you a few months before so that you can get a new nanny that you
can trust.
Yeah, and that you can build that trust before the trip. And they were like, oh my God, no, like we don't want anyone else. We want you, and you don't have to come back. That's fine. They were like, we're going to be going to Vancouver, where they were originally from, after Barcelona anyway. So you could just stay in Europe. And so I did that. And so I went to Barcelona with them for 3 weeks, and then they went back to Canada, and then I stayed in Europe for a year and a half.
Sorry, just going back in a tangent. You're working on a TV show in Halifax.
Yeah.
What show was that? Because I went to film school with someone who went to Halifax, and that's the only reason I know what Halifax is, to work on a TV show. But is there a big film kind of thing there?
There's a pretty good.
TV,
there's a big enough film industry that's kind of the hub of the film industry on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are bigger film industries in Montreal and Toronto and Vancouver, but and in bigger cities in general. They're. I don't want anyone to think that those are the only places that you can pursue film in Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Halifax, that's kind of the hub of the Atlantic film scene.
Okay.
And so when I graduated in order to graduate from journalism school, I had to do an internship. And I somehow managed to get to work on this TV show, but in the art department. And even afterwards, they were like, we should have never let you do this. Like, this is so not your degree. And I just kind of spun it away of like, nah, things are always changing. You have to be really adaptable. Like, here are all of the different skills that I learned at school that I utilized while I was doing this gig. But it was kind of like a late night talk show-esque vibe. Okay. It was called The Candy Show, with this woman, Candy Palmiter, who was an absolute legend.
Yeah.
She used to be a lawyer, and she was a Mi'kmaq woman, and she was a lawyer and a activist for Indigenous rights. And she realized eventually that she could probably make bigger waves doing comedy and talking about things and reaching out to people than pencil pushing. And so she pursued a career as an entertainer, and she was so fucking funny. And so she had this TV show where she'd kind of do some stand-up, and then she would have 2 guests on, and then she would interview them afterwards. And the guests were always there was always at least one musician or like artists, and one of the 2 guests would always be Indigenous, whether they were from what is now known as Canada or what is now known as the United States. There was always a First Nation artist, and or they were at least like from the East Coast. But yeah, she was a big music head. So yeah, it was a really, really fun show, and I just got to like build the set and paint things glittery and pink because she was a self-described lipstick lesbian.
Okay.
Ultra femme, like loved pink glitter everything. I put rhinestones on her mic stand and her microphone and put feathers all over the place, and she interviewed people on this big heart-shaped bed that had this big pink backing, and then had these big funny elaborate pens, and people would sign the wall. And yeah, it was fun. So then I did that season, and they invited me to come back as an actual staff member the following year.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was great. And really good money, which helped because
cool.
I was broke.
Yeah. So you weren't working that much while couch surfing?
When I was in California?
Yeah.
No, I was just chilling.
Oh, you were just living.
Yeah.
Cool.
While we were on the road, I sold an article that I had written while I was in uni. I sold it to a magazine.
Yeah.
But other than that, no, I didn't. I always had like ideas that I was going to be this like travel writer, which I think any person who writes and enjoys to travel dreams of doing. But yeah, no, I wasn't working while I was in California. I was just straight chilling.
Do you still write?
I like to say that I am a writer in my soul. I don't write for other people, and I haven't for a long time, but writing is a massive part of my life and a really big part of how I see the world and how I make sense of things. Yes.
Because you seem like you'd be good at it. I've never read anything you've written, but
I think it is something that I am good at. And I have been told that I do have a way with putting the words together.
I mean, obviously now, I don't know if we ever get time to talk about it, but you're a tour guide now. And I think right when I found you, you were writing up notes for your interpretation notes. Is that like, are you... When you, because that's how I'm starting a new job as a tour guide. That's one of the many reasons I want to hang out with Kate, is to be immersed in this whole thing. And I'm like, oh, I've got to write. I mean, I'm just a junior guide. I just have to stop people from falling off a cliff at the moment. But my ambition is to have my spiels and my stories to tell along the way, because that's what I like to do. But I'm not a very good person who just can... I'm not a good verbal storyteller. I have to write it down before I can. Like, even at my last job as a waiter in a fancy restaurant, we had to talk a lot about the food, but I had to literally sit down and write my spiels for the food. I couldn't ever BS it, even though I do it many times a day.
Totally. No, I get that. I feel like I'm similar because I have such a cyclical and tangential way of speaking that I can kind of lose the plot. So I kind of need that script almost. But I never... But yeah, me writing interp notes for work, to me, that is not... When I talk about writing, that is not...
Okay.
Like, obviously, that is writing, but that's not, like, my writing. And I've always...
But that's for other people, right?
Yeah, but
for your own...
But
tour?
I mean, like, when I talk about... When I say, like, I don't write things for other people, I mean, like, I don't write the things that I want to write and then have them out on a public platform that other people can read. And a really big reason why I haven't pursued writing, like, for a magazine, for example, is that it's like I can't force it. It, like, has to be this natural thing. And I am, at my core, an essayist, like an autobiographical memoir essayist, of writing about life and love and struggle and loss and becoming and abandoning and shedding and the struggle and the euphoria of being a human being.
Do you have a blog out there?
No. It's too late now. My God.
Maybe it's time. Maybe it's the opposite. It's like, bring it back.
No, but you know what? You know what really grinds my gears?
Yeah, here we go.
Is that everyone is expected to be everything now.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be a writer. You also have to be your own publicist, and you have to be a website creator, and you also have to, you have to be multifaceted. You have to be your own editor. You have to learn search engine optimization, and you have to learn how to market yourself, and you have to have a Twitter following. You have to be on TikTok. Literally, to be published now,
yes,
you have to have a TikTok following. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You're talking about people, and this is for artists in general, but you're talking about people who have, like, crafted their art in solitude. And in order to be successful, they have to have this theatrical persona that speaks to people. Like, and I just find it so sad that like you kind of have to be all of those things. And some people love all of those different parts, and some people like take really naturally to those parts, but some people fucking don't. And so my struggle has always been like, I just not like, I miss the old, like I wish I could write back in the old days, but that being a writer used to be that like you literally just wrote and then you gave your pages to your publisher or to your editor, and then they would just like take it from there, and you could just fucking write.
Yeah.
Or like you could, or like you could
it.
just paint, you could just sculpt, you could just make music, and someone else did all of that other stuff. And not that it's like shit, but those people who were doing those other jobs. Hello. Someone out walking the track. Legend.
Wow, so we are close to the track.
Yeah, we were on. She is actually quite far from the track.
Oh yeah, cause I was going to say. Sorry, I'm about to fall down the cliff.
We took the rocks off of the. We took a little rock path up to the bluff.
To find
that
some
we're
shelter
on.
from the wind.
You know, the editors and the website developers and they were good at those things, and so they got to do the things that they were good at. And I just feel like in terms of work life, we have lost. Sorry, I think she's lost, and I would like to help her.
Okay.
Would you like to sing a song? One second.
No worries.
Yeah, so
Kate
essentially...
just saved a tourist that looked in doubt by some rocks as it gets dark.
Yeah, she was a little off the track. But it's easy to get off the track when you're in a rocky section because there's, like, no trail on a rocky section. But yeah, point being... To finish my rant, I wish I was inspired to do all of the little jobs that I hate in order to grow my craft, but I don't want to. And maybe someday I will. Life is long. I do think that before I die, I will achieve something with my writing in a public way. But even if I don't, I have also achieved it 1,000 ways in messages that I send to friends and little notes that I write and poetry that I write. And but yeah, I have a really hard time to write in like the way that I write comes out. The best things that I write are the things that like genuinely come from the soul, that are like not forced. I cannot force it.
Yes.
It really is this like energy that flows out of me, and so I can't. I have no interest in writing about things that I don't care about. And maybe that makes me a princess, but that's okay because it's my hobby.
Yeah. But probably my things, my best written things are probably letters to friends, you know. But no one really sends those anymore.
Which I think we really have lost that art. That was one of my...
But another tangent, we can go on tangents all day, but there's this lady I followed on Instagram, and she was a very quiet Instagram, just post pictures of her oil paintings, and she was a very good artist, and I don't know if I even knew what she looked like, but suddenly she's realized, oh, I've got to be on the TikTok bandwagon, and I should just show you some of the stuff she's producing. And I haven't unfollowed her or like muted her because I want to support her, I want to watch the videos so she gets the views, but it's real hard because you can tell who her target audience is, and she's gone from this, you know, this idea of this romantic painter that lives up in the Kimberley, and now she's like, oh, anyway.
Yeah.
You can just see the marketing wheels turning. She's got to act out every, you know, brushstroke, you know. I
know. And, like, power to the people
but she's probably making money, more money than she did before. I don't know if she's successful, but... Like,
power to the people who can do that. It's just, I did have, I had a semi-successful poetry Instagram page a couple years ago.
So I can find that?
Yeah. I was in what I would call my Rupi Kaur phase.
Yeah.
But this is what's hard, is that I've also, like, social media is this integral part of our society now and an integral part of success, especially in the arts. But I am a happier person when I am not a part of it.
Yeah.
And Instagram was ruining my relationship with my poetry. And so I stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And I think some other people are a lot better at setting those boundaries, and maybe that would be a challenge for me in the future, would be to try to do that, but have boundaries set in place so that it doesn't affect my relationship with it. But it was affecting my relationship with it. And in order to build something, I had to spend so many hours on my phone engaging and, being a part of this community. And I just I don't want to be on my phone. That is not something that I want. And social media has become less and less and less a part of my life as time goes on. And I dare say, as I've gotten happier as a person, I've let it go. And so I think as a true Leo, I definitely used to dream about notoriety and dream about success and public success and becoming someone and having this reputation. And now I am absolutely falling in love with the idea of this anonymous, quiet life where my world is as big as my community and where I live, and just kind of scaling it right back. And I'm loving it.
We went on the tangent. You're going to Barcelona. Did you go and live in Barcelona, or you just go?
I spent 3 weeks in Barcelona with them, and oh my God, genuinely, we do not have enough time for me to explain in great detail what I did in Europe.
Okay.
But because I moved around the whole time. So I was in Barcelona for 3 weeks with them. They left. And then real quick went to France, spent 2 weeks working at a cottage rental, and then 3 weeks on a farm. And then I went to Croatia and worked at a hostel for 6 weeks. And then I went to Bosnia and worked on a farm for about 6-7 weeks, a month, something. Quickly went back to Canada for Christmas to surprise my mom. That was fun. She bawled her eyes out. It was very special. Came back, went to Germany, had fun. Went to Scotland for a month to train dogs in north of Inverness in the Cromarty Firth in the Black Isle. Went down to England.
Discipline?
Train them to just be dogs, really. It was such a strange gig. Basically get them ready to be adopted. It was a weird place.
But you weren't
it was
trained
great.
to be a sheepdog or something?
No, just training them to be good dogs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, we were really into it. And one of them was pregnant, and I got allergic to her saliva because it was so full of hormones.
Oh yeah.
I smelt awful. I went on a Tinder date, and he picked me up, and he was like, "Sweet Holy Mother of God, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you smell disgusting." And I was like, "But I just showered and washed my coat." And he was like, It exhumes from you. You're
you're a real dog lady right now. Yeah.
Went down to Torquay in the south of England and worked on a farm there for 3 weeks. Met up with my mom and did a little 2-week road trip around Belgium. Went to the Netherlands and worked on a farm for a month-ish there. And then I went to Czech Republic and worked on a farm for a couple weeks there, but then mostly just fucking partied in Prague for a week or two. And then I went up to Poland to really just do some sightseeing and do some hiking. Went back to Spain to do running of the bulls with a friend and a little surf camp in San Sebastian. And then went to Bulgaria, where I worked on another farm for a month-ish and did a little road trip with a friend. And then I went to Romania, worked on another farm, fell in love with a chick there, which that was a whole other story. And then that was my time in Europe. And I forgot. After running of the bulls, before I went to Bulgaria, I went to Serbia and worked on a farm there. I forgot a whole chapter. Worked on a farm in Serbia where I was goat herding. And then I went and couch surfed in Montenegro for a week. And then I went down to Albania and I worked at a hostel in the south of Albania in Saranda for a month. And then I went to Ireland to meet up with my family for a couple weeks to do a little trip around there because my mom's father's family is from Ireland, so we did a little pilgrimage trip, and then I went to Bulgaria. It was great. It was amazing. I learned so much. I had a lot of fun. It was great. I at some point...
I've only known Kate during the quiet period where she's receded from life, so this is all like... Well, this is why I wanted to interview her on a podcast, but...
Yeah. My 20s were amazing. And then while I was in Bulgaria, I was an ideas gal, always had like some sort of far-fetched dream, and that's the thing with being a dreamer is like
you had to go to Bulgaria to...
Well, I had to go to Bulgaria...
Facilitate the dream?
No, so I just happened to be in Bulgaria
when you had the idea.
No, I was just talking about like my mind frame at this point was like... Anyway, so I was always like planning ahead, and then my brother called me, and so he had like taken over my dad's business, and his wife is the accountant, and they were having their second baby. And he asked if I would come cover her mat leave. Like I had never done bookkeeping in my life. I'm terrible at math.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, for some reason, that was something they offered to me, and I didn't feel like I could say no. So I was like, sure. So then I went back to Fredericton in 2017, and I lived there for a year, and it was so weird. Went back and lived with my parents. Worked at the company doing central accounting for a pretty large manufacturing company, and I did that for a year, and then I went off again, and then after that I went to New Zealand for 3 months, and then I came here.
How long have you been in Australia?
History. 6 years.
So how come, I'm guessing, is this the longest you've been one spot for a while?
This is the longest I have been in a place, the longest I have lived in a city since going to uni, and the longest I have lived in a house since leaving my parents' house. Because in November I will have lived in my house in Willie Abrup for 4 years.
So how did you get here? And why did you stay?
I went to Sydney originally. Don't do it. And
that's why I'm telling my backpacker friends. They're like, "Oh, we're going to Sydney." I'm like, yeah.
I'm sure it'd be fine.
I think it's going to be sunny over there because they've only come here from Belgium for the winter. And I'm like, you've literally come here for the worst time to be in this part of in terms of temperature, warm temperatures. I don't think it's going to be. The only reason it's going to be warmer in Sydney is because you're going to be there in November.
People outside of Australia as a whole definitely don't understand that we have multiple seasons, including winter, and that it can be cold.
And we don't insulate our building, so it's even colder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. I come from the land of like minus 20, minus 40 with the wind chill, and I have never been colder in my life than inside my Australian home.
This is the common saying from all my backpacker friends.
So I had friends in Sydney, so not only did I live in Canada for a year, but I lived rent-free, and for the first time in my life worked like a career job and made a lot of money for not in Australian terms, but in Canada at the time. At that time in my life, I did really well, and then I went to New Zealand and was just like, wee!
Oh yeah, spent it all.
Not all of it, but
expensive, right?
But I went hard. I YOLO'd hard. And I did the Waitomo Caves, and I went skydiving over Lake Taupo, and I did the Franz Josef heli hike, and I just went buck wild. I had so much fun. It was great. And then,
were you in your 30s by then?
No. I think I was 27.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I just turned 33. It is 2024, and this was in 2018. I'm not good at math.
Okay. Yeah, it's because you're like my friend in 30. I have.
Oh well, yeah. It was 6 years
And
ago.
I already know
so
you were a year, so.
So it's so embarrassing. 33 months. Yeah, I would have turned 27. I was 26, turning 27.
Yeah.
So I got to Sydney, and I really just needed to make money because I wanted to save up enough to buy a car because I knew that I was going to need a car for doing my farm work. And before I arrived here, I had met a ton of people who had done farm work. I had met a bunch of Aussies who had friends who had done farm work. And I had heard so many nightmare stories of like terrible conditions and shit pay and hot temperatures and back-breaking work in the middle of fucking whoop and getting propositioned as a woman so that you could like sign off for them doing your paperwork if you just fucked them. Like just awful stories. And like the story of the like backpacker who like had a mental breakdown due to exhaustion and like killed another backpacker. Like, you know, just awful stories. But the only good story I heard was about a girl, a friend of a friend of mine, who did her backpacking in Dunsborough working at the avocado farm. So I was like, okay. And they had sent, he had sent me a photo. He was like, oh, like she sent me this while she was there. And it was a photo of the Dunsborough Beach House backpackers, the YHA. Like a photo of their garden, and there's just like hammocks everywhere, and it's just this big lawn, and then the ocean. And I just thought, oh my god, I can do my farm work and live by the sea. Like all of the stories that I've heard are you have to live in the middle of nowhere, and then you just kind of get this done so that you can enjoy your life. So I was like sick. Came here, had no idea it was a wine region, no idea. Came to Dunsborough, planning to do avocados. The avocado work dried up very quickly. But then by then I found out that there was that I was in a wine region, and then I started working on the vines. But ultimately I just fell in love with this place. I reconnected with this couple that I had become friends with in Bosnia. We had traveled together, and before coming here I was looking at Dunsborough on Google Maps, just trying to situate myself, and I saw Bustleton, and I thought that looks really familiar. And then like a couple days later, my friend Lex posted a photo of her and Liam on the jetty, and I was like, oh my god, they fucking live in Bustleton. That's why it's familiar. And so I messaged them and said, I'm moving to Dunsborough next week. So they invited me to stay with them for the weekend before I moved into the hostel, and we just caught on like a house on fire. Like we had when we met. We traveled together for about a week in Bosnia, which is like a year in backpacker life. Not actually, I'm joking. But yeah, it was just this crazy coincidence, and then we just got along so well, and they invited me to live with them. And I was like, oh well, I know it's a lot easier to find farm work when you're living at a hostel. So I'll go to the hostel until I find regular work, but then afterwards that would be great. So that's what I did. So that was like end of August, and then by mid-November I moved in with them, and he was the venue manager of this brand new bar that had just opened, Darlene's. And so I started working there, and then I just like had this community, and they just completely like their friends welcomed me with open arms, and I just had so much fun living with them. And then eventually when I left, because I only knew how to leave at this point, the idea of staying in one place was absolutely foreign to me, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And I went to leave and had me and a few friends drove across the Nullarbor. I left some things with a friend in Melbourne, and then I went to travel for a bit and visit Canada. And then by the time that I came back, I just realized, no, this was a really special place, and my time here doesn't have to be over. Why not do one more year? So I came back, went back to my old job, working for a vine labor contracting company. Came back to do another season of wire lifting with them, moved back in with Lex and Liam, and just got to resume my life, which was also, I was really lucky to be able to do that, because a lot of backpackers you go to a place and you have this incredible time, and then you try to come back to it, but you were friends with other backpackers and they've all left, and like it just doesn't, it's not the same. But I got super lucky that most of my friends were Australian, so I got to just kind of resume the beauty. But I loved the landscape, and the ocean just spoke to me, and this is genuinely the place that I had started that journey of getting comfortable with myself and learning how to enjoy my own company. But it was here that I fell in love with myself, that I really like found self-love and self-acceptance, and I just wanted to come back to that and just kind of still be a part of this community. And I just loved the landscape. I loved the coastline, Baranup Forest. I still remember the first time I saw it, and so I wanted to come back, and I did.
For reference, for people who don't know where we are, we're in the southwest of WA, the lower west corner of Western Australia. It has its own sort of unique, amazingly diverse landscapes, because you go from one place to another, it's completely different forests, different things.
Yeah, it's such a special place.
We're sitting amongst the coastal heath on the Cape to Cape track right now.
Yes.
So why you have a partner like a fairly long term now, wouldn't?
Yeah, it was 4 years in 4 years in May.
But he was here 6 years before that, because it's been 10 years. Or?
Yeah. Well, he's probably been here for more than 10 years now.
10 years when you met him. Yeah,
I think it was 10 when I met him, or almost 10. And he originally started in Noosa, and then he ended up coming down here. And then he had been here for, I think he had been here for 7 or 8 years before I met him. And we met at a party the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I was always planning on leaving again. But then before I came here to do my second year, they announced that if you did, because for people who don't know, in Australia, backpackers from certain countries, if you can come here and do farm work for 3 months in your first year as a backpacker, and then if you do those 88 days of farm work, you are then eligible to come back for a second year. And then it was announced that they were starting a new scheme where if you did 6 months of farm work, you could get a third year. And it was coming to Australia to do farm work was such an easy decision for me to make, because for one, it was a work visa with very little paperwork, and I have always chosen the path of least paperwork. But also I had just done a year and a half of working on farms in Europe, and I knew that I really liked agricultural work, so I knew that I knew that it was for me. And so I came here, and so I went back to my old job, and it was just kind of perfect. And then COVID happened, and my plan was still, when I met Thibaut, my partner, my plan was still, when my second year was up, when my farm work was done, I was going to leave, and I was going to do the perimeter of Australia and travel around, because again, the idea of staying in a place that was not on my radar. And then COVID happened, and I was forced to stay, and it was really an experience that made me finally admit to myself, I like it here, and I think I'm ready for the experience and the adventure of what it looks like to set down roots. And it's kind of been 4 years since I've made that decision, and it's incredible.
So you think you're staying here?
Yeah. I like to say it's not for forever, it's till whenever.
Yeah.
And
but you now with this partner, he's not thinking of moving?
We think the same way in terms of we will be here as long as we like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We will be here as long as it makes sense for us to be here. And if further down the line, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, if you would have told me that I would choose to live in the middle of nowhere. I live outside of a country town, and which is something that you and I have in common, of living rurally, and you live even more rurally than I do.
Well, I still live in the town.
Oh, yeah.
But I moved from a big city to a very small town.
But yeah, if you would have told me that.
I didn't go far though. Or opposite side of the world.
Yeah, that was an accident. But I would have never guessed that, I have no interest in a career or making a name for myself in anything. I just want to have what I need to live a good life, and the good life that I want to live is my little quiet life where I get to read and go on walks and hang out with my dog and hang out with my partner and make amateur art and buy knickknacks and travel from time to time and just live this really quiet existence.
It's interesting. Do you think like just having such a loud existence for the 10 years leading up to it, it's like you got it out of your system, or do you think this is just a lull and you're re-energizing to go have a crazy midlife crisis in about 5 years?
No, I think I think I had my quarter life crisis.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like a crisis, but I definitely feel like
I have to make a change.
But no, like you make a really good point in terms of did I get it out of my system, and that's what I was getting. That's the point that I was making, is like I would have never guessed that this is where I would have ended up and that I would want the things that I would want. And so Thibaut and I often talk about the fact of we don't know what we're going to want in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and what's going to come down the line. We just have to trust that if what we want changes, that we'll be in tune enough with it to make those changes and to kind of just follow that energy, follow those whims. But yeah, I do wonder. I'm so glad that I did what I did in my 20s, because I would not have the energy to do that now. Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm so tired.
We're going to wrap up because it's getting dark and
It is.
Don't want to get lost in the track. It'd be a bit embarrassing if we died. But I met you at a book club, which is about adventurous as I get, starting a book club and keeping it going after my friend I started with left after the first meeting.
I still don't even know.
You've never even met my co-founder of the book.
I had never met you, and you're the one who invited me to book club.
Yes, because because she was 19. We got a bunch of 19-year-olds into it because it was her book club, because she wanted to make friends, and I wasn't really interested in being part of it. But then some of those friends I worked with, and they were like, no, even though my friend went back to Perth, she's like, no, you got me all excited. I was busy, I couldn't do it at first, but now I'm ready. And I'm like, okay, I need to find someone here that's at least in their 30s. And I remember just seeing you post some reviews on your Instagram one day, and I was like, oh, I know she lives down here. I wonder if she'll come to my book club and make me feel less alone with a bunch of 19-year-olds.
And it was great.
Yeah. When I met you, you're reading books. You were also listening to books on...
Yeah, audiobooks.
Audiobooks while you're working.
Yeah.
Which was another thing we had in common. I got a job that I worked in for 10 years just because I could listen to podcasts while I worked.
Yes.
And I probably stayed in that job way too long. But you read a lot of books, or at least when we last spoke you did. I don't know, I assume you still do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that like your sort of one of your big passions, or it's just how you spend your time?
Bit of both. That is just genuinely how I love spending my time. It's like this addiction. Like I just love reading. I just love stories. And I always know what I'm going to read next before I even finish the book that I'm on. Like, and that's probably terrible. Like, just enjoy what you're reading now. But it's like collecting Pokemon cards. Like, I'm obsessed. I love it. And that being said, I mean, some of the girls that were in our book club like read even like twice as much as I do, and I have no like, I feel like I have like a healthy dose. It's not my only hobby, but it is my main hobby. And for me, I do struggle with limiting my screen time, and that's been something that I've had to work on as an adult. And so for me, it's this like safe hobby that's cozy, that's just really comforting and calming. Yeah, I don't know why I love to read. I just love reading, and it's not like I even only read one genre. I often say that I'll read anything as long as it's good. Yeah. And then even then, with some of the books that I've read as of late, they're not even like
I remember, I can tell you the exact moment that you turned up at the book club as a total stranger, and that was things like that on one of my rare occasions of being outgoing. And but I can tell you the moment I fell in love with you was when you were talking about having a spreadsheet that helps you make sure you don't read too much of the same genre in a row, which I would like to go into that. We might have to do another episode of just about books and stuff. But
yes.
Yeah. And then I was just like, oh, you're an interesting person. I would like to keep you in my life somehow. Yes.
Yeah, that started off as in 2015, I started writing down the books I read in a year, and I didn't want to set... The final goal was I want to read as many... Each year I want to read more books than I did the year before. There was no number to it, but the goal was the dream was I wanted to be able to read 100 books in a year. And I started writing them down, and it was when I started writing them down that I started realizing, wow, that's a lot of men. That's a lot of male authors. And then so that started to make me a little more aware of how many men I was reading. So I was wanting to make sure I was reading as many women. And then it kind of just digressed from that, of me just being like, oh, well, wait, that's... And then because then I started creating pie charts of men versus women, but then also where they come from. And then I was like, oh, wow, even though I'm reading a lot more women now, I'm predominantly reading American and British authors. And then so it just kind of... And then once I started getting a bigger variety of nationalities, again, to me, it really is like collecting Pokemon cards. Eventually that it turned into genres. And then it'd be like, all right, well... read a nonfiction and then a fiction and kind of go in between the two. And then, I just read a fantasy, so then I should read a thriller. And then, I should read some literary fiction. And, I just read a book that takes place in Nigeria. Let's go to Japan next. And, I'll read a North American author, but it'll be from this place that I've never been from, or it'll be from a Cree woman, or and just trying to I really do believe that variety is the spice of life. She says this while she does pretty much the same thing every day and has one predominant hobby. But yeah, I guess I don't really practice what I preach anymore. But when it comes to my reading, I really do. I just love reading different stuff. But then but I also used to read with this desire to be a well-read person. And then in the last couple of years, I have really fallen in love with learning how to just read for fun and not necessarily only read critically acclaimed works of art, and that I can, and not punish myself by needing to read books that are a certain type of book in order to be impressive. I don't hate read anything anymore. I used to read books and just kind of be like, oh my god, this is so boring, but it's a book that I'm supposed to read, so I'm going to push myself through it. And I don't really do that anymore. I just read for fun, and it's great. And then over time, I'm probably getting a little less variety in my genres as I used to a couple years ago, but I've said it already today, but it's my hobby. I can do whatever I want.
My this is a bit dark thing, but my grandfather, who I grew up, he just passed away about a month ago, and I'd always known him as a military history buff. All the books that he read were about military history, or just history in general. And then at the end of his life, all he wanted to read was romance novels about people living on a ranch.
Legend.
Because it's just pure escapism. As you know, you're reaching the end.
I love that.
And he would talk about, this is the trashiest thing that ever, but can you just help me? I need to learn Amazon and download all of them on the book on my Kindle, because I'm suddenly reading a lot. I have way more time on my hands now that I had a stroke and can't move around that much, or whatever.
That's awesome.
It was funny because yeah. So hopefully I'm going to convince Kate to come talk about books, maybe like a podcast book club, maybe every now and then. That'd
be really fun. I feel like we'd open a can of worms, but this was really great. I'm very honored that you deemed me interesting enough to have a chat with me.
I'm cutting back on the tangents because I'm living on a farm in Bulgaria, and we could do a whole
I know.
episode of that.
It makes sense to start at the beginning, especially since this, I guess, was also like, well, it'd be nice for, I was about to say it was almost like us getting to know each other, because there was a lot that you don't know about my life before you met me.
Yeah, the
like
whole
a year
Christian
ago.
thing.
Yeah.
I think you told me once that you got diagnosed as autistic,
Yes.
which could explain the whole spreadsheet thing. But
it
that could
explains
be a
lot.
And that was a moment where I remember you telling me that was a moment where you sort of started to reframe how you thought about the way you see the world.
Oh yeah. That diagnosis was like the most life-changing thing that's ever happened to me.
So
and
we
it's
didn't
been,
even
like,
have time to talk about that. Could be a whole episode.
It's been so liberating. But yeah, I was going to say it's been nice
plug
getting to know you, but then I haven't really gotten to
No.
get to know you. But we'll do that another time.
Let's go over a beer or something. The people on my podcast have heard enough about me. Maybe you should start your own podcast.
I've thought about it many a time.
What you should do as we leave up is plug. Do you have a public Instagram?
It's not very. It's not public.
It's
but
like
I
private.
Okay. And to be honest, I don't post on there ever. But
you do used to put some reviews of the books you're reading. I know you have to do it with them in batches, but
it's been a year. But I
Yeah.
would like to come back to it. But I'm happy to plug my socials. I accept most people. I just mostly just make sure they're not bots.
yes.
Actually, I think I made it private when I was applying for my visa.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So my Instagram handle is at Kate Howells, but it's like Howells like the verb, so KateHowls.
Thanks for coming along and
Thanks
sitting
for
on a rock
having me.
in winter.
I will make sure I get us off this
I didn't bring my headlamp.
ridge. We have our phones.
Yeah.
Once we get off of this rocky bit, we'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for this, James.
No worries. Thank
Or
you.
Tom, whoever you are.
Whoever I am, yeah. This is Jimmerish FM, by the way. Goodbye.
Bye.